Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. You know what time it is if you click the video. It is time to talk about AEW Double or Nothing, the final pay-per-view event of Memorial Day weekend. Was it the best? Nope, it was not the best. Nowhere near it. I was very disappointed by this show. I was very disappointed by the Las Vegas crowd. The energy did not stay up as it usually does for AEW shows. Usually, when you go into an AEW show, the audience are usually the stars of the show. They go out of their way to make the show. And there were certain parts of this show where the crowd did get up. But there was other parts of this show where the crowd was just like waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen. And part of it is the booking and the performances. The other part is just, what can these people do in front of this audience that they haven't already seen? And then they managed to do some stuff that they hadn't already seen. And those are things we didn't necessarily need to see. So, oh boy. So, I didn't watch the pre-show. Sorry. I just didn't have it in me. I watched way too much wrestling this weekend. I could not watch the pre-show. So, what I did is I just skipped right to the main show. 21-man Battle Royal, the Blackjack Battle Royal, which was won by Orange Cassidy. So, he's better than everybody on the roster that's not either in the main event or in the co-main event. Such luminaries such as Keith Lee, Bandito, Jay White, Phoenix, Pentagon Jr., Ricky Starks had to share a ring with Kip Sabian, Tony Nese, Arya Devar. Come on, man. Are you serious? You couldn't find anything for Swerve and Keith Lee to do. You couldn't find anything for Jay White to do. I know that Hobbs and QT Marshall, they backed out like a day before this show aired. They were supposed to be in this thing and then they got pulled. I don't know if they got pulled because they didn't want to be in it or if because they decided they was going to do something else with them. I don't know. But looking at this lineup, there are so many talented dudes in this match that this is an absolute waste of time. All right. This is a waste of time. Orange Cassidy being a world beater is not believable. He wasn't even the 4th biggest person in this match. He was actually one of the smallest. And he supposedly had an injured hand. So he beat all of these guys with one hand and being smaller than most of them. Come on, man. The way that I do like how they structured the Battle Royal in terms of it wasn't everybody in the ring at once. Some people was being heels and they just hung out outside the ring and they came in over time. And it says that they technically couldn't get eliminated because they hadn't been in the ring yet. So that allowed them to do some, like Commander to do like some flips and stuff outside the ring. Because you got to get it in. You can't have Commander in the match and he doesn't run the ropes. I mean, come on, that's his gimmick. I gotta get my shit in, bro. You know? So, there we go. Keith Lee was in this thing. I mean, he is just so gray by the head. His grays are just so prominent. It's sad. It's really sad. The final 4 ended up being Swerve, Big Bill, Pentagon, Orange Cassidy, and I legitimately was not really all that interested, to be quite honest. Once I saw that Jay White was in this and Ricky Starks, I knew Jay White and Ricky Starks were going to be in here, but I thought maybe it would be it could have been 30 guys in this match and I wouldn't have noticed, because 90% of them are completely interchangeable from the rest of the dark elevation crowd. Who cares? They tried to, by staggering people's entrances, give people certain highlights in the match. So Keith Lee got his spots. Big Bill got some spots in. You know, Swerve got his spot at the end. Jay White and Ricky Starks got to do something. You know, that kind of stuff. They tried to, and that was the positive, I guess you could say, about staggering the people who are coming in. At the same time, though, having people just hang out outside the ring is kind of weird. Like, it would make sense if they had did it in the casino battle royal where they come in blocks, and then you could just bring in certain people. They could do their spots. They could eliminate the people we don't need. And I'm not saying we should have done a casino battle royal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying is just having guys hang out outside the ring and just watch while everybody, it's like they can't win, but they can't lose either. So they're just hanging out. It's like, that's easy. You know, I don't know. But Swerve was one of the guys who was just hanging out outside the ring. He ended up being one of the final guys in. It was just him and Orange Cassidy. The crowd actually got into that part because the tension had actually built up a little bit. But this match it felt like it was going on forever. It just felt like it was just going on forever. But this was probably the one, well, every match on this show was overbooked. That's just the theme of the show. It was 10 matches on this show. They overbooked it 10 damn times. All right? 10 times they overbooked this show. You had 10 matches. That's way too many. But then when you have 10 matches and you overbook each damn match, that's just, you did that on purpose. All right. It's not, you can overbook here and there, you know, but every match, this wasn't even like a straight up battle royal. It was a battle royal with staggered entrances. And then, you know, we ended up with everybody had to get their spot. So people had to hang in the corner. And then we get to the end and Orange Cassidy wins by just lackadaisically kicking Swerve in the arm. I was like, okay, let's just, it was fine, I guess. Waste of talent, but it was generally speaking, it was fine. What was not fine was the quote unquote unsanctioned match between Chris Jericho and Adam Cole, which ended up being kind of boring. Actually, I don't even know if I should qualify it by saying kinda. It was just plain boring. Also overbooked, but also boring. So Sabu comes out and he's throwing chairs at guys, which made me laugh. Some people are still in their feelings about Sabu being there. I, however, am not. But Sabu and Roderick Strong, they fight all of the members of the JAS. Now, while Sabu was there, you know he had to get his shit in too. He climbs to the top rope and he did not jump off that top rope. And don't lie and tell me he did. He leaned forward and let gravity do the rest, you know. In terms of, he fell off the top rope through a table, and I just looked at, I was cackling at that point, because it reminds me a lot of what he did when he was on Monday Night Raw, and he had climbed the Raw set, and he was on top of the Raw set, and he kind of just leaned forward and fell off the R of the Raw set, you know, the old Monday Night Raw set. It was similar, where he didn't got enough spring in them legs to jump. But if you get that table close enough, he'll just lean forward and make it look like he jumped. And that'll be enough to get people excited. All right, so Chris Jericho and Adam Cole have not had a serious match first. So they decided to actually try to have one in the middle of this for a little while, which included Adam Cole being in a Boston Crab for what felt like 5 minutes almost. While Adam Cole just happened to know that there was a fire extinguisher under the ring, a little bit to the left where he can find it. Then Jericho gave him way too much time to get it. Then he pulled him into the ring. Then Jericho looked behind him so that he could spray him with the fire extinguisher. Okay. I think Jericho likes doing that spot. He's done it a bunch of times. Adam Cole was at a disadvantage. Jericho had a kendo stick. Then Britt Baker runs down to the ring, and she just starts wailing on Jericho with the kendo stick. I actually like this spot. I would have changed it a little bit and put maybe Adam Cole in some real danger first. Maybe he's about to get his head cracked open with a chair or something like that. And then she came down there to save him. But, you know, it was just that Jericho had a kendo stick and Adam Cole didn't. And he was daring Jericho to hit him. And then she came in there and saved him. Saraya came out there to help. She got caned too. Then she got chased off by Britt Baker, who ran off too. At one point, Jericho threw a chair at Adam Cole. And I just said, like, don't this guy have a history of concussions? Why are we throwing chairs at his head? That's probably not a good idea. And he ended up falling off the top rope through a table because everybody has to have tables. Then they broke out the handcuffs and with this mile-long chain between them. It's like, what's the fuck is the point of being handcuffed if the chain is going to be this long? You know, there's so much chain here. He wrapped the chain around his knee, did the boom into the back of Jericho's head. He didn't pin Jericho. Instead, he just started punching Jericho in the head with his bare fist. He wrapped the chain around his knee again, and then continued to just punch Jericho in the head. Jericho was defending himself at first and then stopped defending himself. And then the match just stopped. Referee's decision is that Jericho cannot continue. So the match is over. Okie dokie. No pop at all on that finish, by the way. Everybody was more confused than anything. There's a lot of people looking like, was that supposed to happen? And I was kind of like, it felt like I was supposed to happen. Like he beat Jericho to sleep. I guess the match was so boring that Jericho even fell asleep during this match. I hate this match. I hate it. Was it the worst match on the show? Oh, no, it wasn't the worst, but I hate this match. I hate it with the heat of 1,000 suns. I feel so bad because I like Jericho and Adam Cole to a degree. And I think that if they had a straight up match, it would have been better than this. This was terrible. It was awful. Later, Jericho is pitching a bitch because he lost by referee stoppage, and Saraya is mad too. So they decided they wanted a mixed tag team match on Dynamite. They demanded one. Tony Khan, of course, is going to give it to them. But at the time, it's because Jericho was throwing a temper tantrum, which is what he's really good at. He's been doing that his entire career, and he knows that it works, and it does work. Some random guy comes over and is like, hey, you guys ought to chill out. You guys ought to relax. And Jericho's like, you don't tell me to relax. You don't tell me. Like, come on, guys. Chill out. And Saraya's like, okay, sure. I'll calm down. Jericho goes off screen and throws a fireball at this guy. And then says that where was the fireball during the unsanctioned match when it was perfectly sensible for you to throw a fireball? You throw a fireball in a backstage segment. Why? Oh, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Jesus Christ. All right, so let's move on to the World Tag Team Championships. Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal versus FTR in what was also a boring-ass match. The crowd did not really pop until Mark Briscoe ejected Sanjay Dutt, and that was like 10 minutes into the match. The match had already been going on for a long time before the crowd really got a reaction out of this thing. At this point, the overbooking comes in because now you got Mark Briscoe get hit by a guitar by accident by Jarrett. Then he was trying to hit FTR. Then FTR hit their finish. Aubrey Edwards tried to come to the ring to stop it, but Sanjay Dutt is still out there, despite the fact that he was ejected. He's blocking, playing complete and total defense to prevent Aubrey Edwards from getting into the ring. Then Karen Jarrett hits Aubrey Edwards with a guitar. And bro, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why is this happening now? So now Aubrey is down. Now they're in the ring, because there's still a match going on. And people are still doing their finishers, but there is no ref. And I was just like, oh my God. I was just shaking my head like, I don't get it. Eventually, we got all put out of our misery as FTR won the match with the Shatter Machine. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was the regular tag team part of it was perfectly fine. It was a perfectly fine tag team match that they then decided to throw guitars into and 2 different ref bumps. Man, they abused so many goddamn referees on this show, man. They beat the hell out of the referees. I'm like, what is happening? And why? Like, why was Karen Jarrett, why did she have to hit Aubrey with a guitar? Did she have to do that? Was that really necessary? Was it a necessary component of this match? No. Sanjay Dutt had already distracted her because in the ring, I think it was Jarrett that was about to get pinned. So you already had slowed her up. You could have then, after, Jarrett woke up, you could have got out of the way. And then if he got into some trouble, you could have had Karen Jarrett pull the referee out of the ring or something like that. You didn't have to go so far as to, I'm going to hit Aubrey Edwards with a chair. Well, I mean, with a guitar. We didn't have to do that. We didn't have to go that far. I'm flummoxed at the booking of this show. Just looking at it like, it looks like somebody who just says, more is more. And how much more can I dump into this thing? And it decided more is more. I'm going to pack more shit into this show that you can stand. And it's going to be 4 hours. So, okay, FTR wins. Ricky Starks is complaining that he lost the Battle Royal, but at least he eliminated Jay White and Juice Robinson. Then he got jumped by them again, and FTR came out there to save him. So now they're hitching Ricky Starks to FTR. Who cares? That tag team title match was far too long. They got way too much time. You definitely, FTR's slow rolling tag team matches, probably not the best. They usually are very good. Jarrett, love him. Jay Lethal's very cool with me. I don't have nothing personal against anybody in this match except FTR Ball being a spurg. But other than that, I just generally think this was a bad tag team title match. They had an off night. And the crowd didn't give a shit. Until they started swinging guitars around, they didn't really care. You know, so if that's what you had to do, I guess that's what you had to do. But it was kind of awful, if we ask me. All right, so the ladder match, Christian versus Wardlow for the TNT Championship. The crowd is chanting turtleneck at Christian, which was the first pop of the entire match. Luchasaurus interfered. Now, here's when shit got real. Because Luchasaurus turned around, went to the back. Arn Anderson did the same thing. Christian and Wardlow went out there, had their match. It was fine. Okay? It was going okay. It wasn't tearing the roof off the building, but it was going okay. So then Luchasaurus came out there, which means Arn had to come out there. Luchasaurus, of course, prevents Wardlow from winning. Then he grabs Wardlow. I think he chokeslammed him. Then he grabbed Arn Anderson. And he looked like he's going to chokeslam Arn Anderson. Then Arn Anderson bites the thumb of Luchasaurus. He bit the man on his thumb. Okie dokie. You got to stop it somehow because Arn Anderson is not about to take a bump. So you got to do something. So I respect that. And then we see that Luchasaurus' hand is bleeding. So we're led to believe that Arn Anderson bit Luchasaurus' thumb off. With that much blood, it would have to be missing in order for it to... Bruh, they just started slanging around raspberry jam in the middle of this match. I'm like, what the again, what the fuck is going on? The match has completely stopped so that these guys can do this. And it's Arn Anderson, who has got to be 70. Probably closer to 80 than 70. And he bites Luchasaurus, and he really doesn't get any comeuppance because he can't take a bump. So Luchasaurus just kind of like walks him around. You did this to me. Look what you did to my hand. Look what you did to my hand. And I'm like, oh my God. At this point, I stopped paying attention. So I'm like, I give up. Like, AEW beats you over the head until you verbally submit. And you're like, just throw your hands up in the air and you'll figure it out. It'll be over when it's over. Luchasaurus was still out there. They did the spot where Wardlow did the really, really high swanton off the top of the big ladder through the table, but it was onto Luchasaurus, not Christian. Okay, that was fine. That was a way of eliminating Luchasaurus from the match. Christian was about to win the match at one point. Arn Anderson pushed him off, and pushing him off, it pushed him right into Wardlow, who powerbombed Christian, climbed the ladder and won. Again, overbooked. Crowd really didn't care until they started overbooking it. And I guess that's what the AEW audience wants, because while for me, it induces confusion, because I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. For the AEW audience, they're like, yeah, something's finally happening. And I'm just sitting here like, huh? For starters, Why Luchasaurus didn't just hang out outside the ring? Why did he turn around and leave just to come back out later? Like, you knew there was going to be a point in the match in which Christian was going to need help. So, I don't know. Christian wrestling in a turtleneck is very cool, though. I will give him credit for that. It shows off his arms, and he's been doing pretty good with his arms. So, thumbs up to Christian. He's the only person who should have gray hair on this show because he's the only person, like, over the age of 40. You know? So, everybody else shouldn't have gray hair. Well, him and Arn Anderson. You know, why Keith Lee's head looked like, you know, fucking Santa Claus, I have no idea. But, this match was okay. It wasn't terrible. I like Wardlow. I like Christian. I think that they just got put in a situation where it was too much on their plate. All right. You had to try to make it make sense with the Arn Anderson stuff and the Luchasaurus stuff. When in reality, you should have just had Wardlow boss up and fight both of them off. That's really what you should have done. If you're really trying to make Wardlow look strong, he's already in the hole. It's 2-on-1. Get Christian in a situation where Christian is older. We can understand that if you hit him with something big, he's going to be down for a while. Then he scraps with Luchasaurus. He ends up putting Luchasaurus through a table or something like that. And then he continues. Why use Arn Anderson at all? We really don't need Arn Anderson in this situation because why should Wardlow need an old man to watch his back? If it was another wrestler, you know, or somebody who was significantly bigger than Wardlow, you shouldn't do that. Shouldn't put somebody who's bigger than Wardlow with Wardlow. But if that was the case, that would make sense, you know, to even up the odds. But since Wardlow is a big jack dude, he should have been able to fight off Luchasaurus by himself, you know, and fight from underneath. That's what you want to see, you know, in terms of him showing fire, him showing passion, him never giving up. You don't always need to have equal numbers. It's not always the case. But at least the right guy won. Okay, so it was okay. It wasn't terrible. It was few of the not terrible matches on the show. Then we got Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter, which induced more confusion in me because Toni Storm's in the ring. There's no Saraya. There's no Ruby Soho. Jamie Hayter's music plays. She doesn't come out. Her music stops. It plays again. She still doesn't come out. And then she comes rolling onto the ramp. She's being kicked and punched by Saraya and Ruby Soho. They're just assaulting Jamie Hayter. So all three of them beat the tar out of Jamie Hayter outside the ring. And I immediately wrote down, where's Britt Baker? Where's Hikaru Shida? Where's Willow Nightingale? Where is all of these people that have been involved with this feud for the last 3 fucking months? Where are all of these people? Where are they? None of them come out and help this girl. She's getting her shit kicked in and nobody does anything. So then eventually the bell starts and then Britt Baker shows up just too late to matter. And she doesn't really, she runs them off, but still it wasn't enough. There was a ref bump in this match because again, they beat the hell out of the referees on this show. And I'm like, why did they need to have a ref bump? So they had a ref bump. And, well, the ref didn't go down. He wasn't unconscious, but he hit his head. And he was like, oh, what's going on? While his back was turned, Ruby Soho sprayed Jamie Hayter in the eyes, which led to the Storm Zero. And Toni Storm is the women's champion. Now, this was the right move. Toni Storm winning the title was the right move. You should have done that, you know. So that's fine. If Jamie Hayter couldn't physically perform, then having them jump her is fine. The issue is you injected all of these other people throughout the story, the body of this story. And then when it matters most for them to be there, they are not there. All right. That's the problem. You can't introduce Willow and what wasn't, Riho and all these people who have been fighting the Outcasts, you know, over the last several weeks. Where these people been? Where they at? You know, and you just basically leave her to the Sharks. So of course she lost. It makes perfect sense at that point. But again, they overbooked it with the ref bump, and then they had to do the spray paint in the eyes. I'm like, I think we should have done enough with the she's a power wrestler who can only use one arm. She's going to obviously get some kind of fight back to show some fire, and then you cut her off again. And it's a simple story of, you know, how you have the match. So how they structured it wasn't really an issue. You start with the heat by having the girls jump Hayter. Then Hayter starts to fight back when what you should have had is Willow and all them come out there to chase Saray and all them off. And once everybody's gone, now Jamie can fight back. Then you can have, you know, Tony cut her off a little bit, work the arm or whatever the case may be. Then I don't see why we needed to have the ref bump at all. You create a situation in which the referee is not looking, in which Ruby comes back, sprays, you know, Jamie in the eyes. Then maybe she's chased off again. Then we end up with the big finish. But this was just, we're going to throw, again, everything at the wall. This was making spaghetti by throwing the noodles, the meat, the pasta, and everything at the wall. And then it's all going to land in a clump on the floor. And it's going to look like spaghetti. But it ain't properly made like spaghetti. So the match was short, which is perfectly fine for me because this match was it was too much stuff on this show. So something had to get cut short. So this being short, okay, fine. Match 6, the House of Black and their opponents are the Acclaimed. So this was an open challenge from the beginning. We didn't know who the opponents were going to be, but I think most of us could have guessed it was going to be the Acclaimed. So this leads to the rap. And the rap says that Buddy Matthews is being cucked by a guy named Dominic. Says that Malachi is doing blackface. And why do you have a House of Black with no black guys in it? And the whole cucked by Dominic thing, I like that. Because it plays into his own insecurities. Especially if you ever seen his Twitter accounts when people are talking about Rhea Ripley and Dominic and all this kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure he probably took that personally. And I enjoy that he probably did take that personally. But the whole thing about Malachi Black doing blackface, get the fuck out of here. There was a guy on this show doing blackface, even though I think it might have been a mask. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they had a match. It was a solid enough match. The Acclaimed are over. I don't mind that they're over. I would have preferred if you actually put some storyline behind this rather than just saying it's going to be an open challenge. Again, open challenges are lazy. It's just we can throw anybody in there. What gets people over is you tell the story. Okay? So they worked up to the big tag. You know, the big tag to Billy Gunn. So Billy Gunn comes in. They do a really good job of feeding for him. Feeding means taking bumps, get up, take a bump, get up, take a bump, get up. And he hits the Faymaster on Brody King. And Brody King takes a goofy face bump when he just basically lands on top of his head and flips over. Ultimately, Billy Gunn takes the pin when he gets hit with Black Mass. And this was a solid match. All right, this wasn't awful. The crowd kind of slow for this one too. But at least it was a sensible match that wasn't too overbooked. Except with the whole open challenge concept. You could have saved this for Dynamite. And probably we could have got to bed at a decent hour if you'd have saved this for Dynamite. But this was fine. This was one of the matches that was perfectly fine the way it was. Didn't really need to touch too much of anything. Jade Cargill versus Taya Valkyrie. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. Look, the first match was an absolute disaster. I expected this one to be just as bad. It wasn't, though. Now, the entrances. Let's talk about the entrances, because these actually felt like big show entrances. So, Taya Valkyrie, apparently, now, I'm just being sort of paranoid. Like, so I'm looking at the dancers during Taya Valkyrie's entrance. And I'm saying, are those drag queens? I'm thinking they're drag queens. Now, my brother kept telling me they weren't drag queens and that my vision is really bad, which it is. My vision is terrible. But I'm thinking at the gigantic platforms on the shoes. And I'm thinking, man, I think those are drag queens. You know, like I may go to my grave thinking those are drag queens. And it wouldn't surprise me if they were, you know, but I was just kind of like, all right, whatever. So then we get Jade Cargill's entrance, and she's with the AKAs, and they do a little bit of strolling, not a lot. And I was like, okay, that was nice. I would have liked for them to go like around the ring or something like that. That would have been very cool. My run-ins, I've had limited run-ins with the AKAs. As a matter of fact, I've had plenty of run-ins with the AKAs. Not the most, how you say, personable of people. It seems that people, when they get in these sororities and fraternities, they take on certain aspects of the stereotype when it comes to, like being an AKA, being very obnoxiously arrogant. It's one of those things. And when it's regular hood chicks, like it's one thing if she is like some kind of big shot at a company or something. But when you're like a regular hood chick who just happens to pledge AKA and now all of a sudden you got this gigantic head, it's kind of a joke, you know. It's like, it's ridiculous, right? But I didn't know Jade Cargill was an AKA, so it's very cool. I would have liked for them to stroll around the ring a little bit. I think it would have been nice, or do it in their jackets, you know, which maybe the national organization wouldn't have allowed them to do it, use her colors, even though she was wearing the colors anyway. There's a difference between the colors and the colors, right? So the colors mean that you wear pink and green are the colors for the AKAs. You can wear that, and that's fine. But the letters, which is what I should have said, is different. You know, they don't want you doing certain things in your letters. So maybe they didn't want their letters associated with pro wrestling. So even though they mentioned the AKAs and they strolled a little bit, they didn't want to go hard with it. You know, which I don't see why you wouldn't. You know, she wasn't doing anything in this match that would make the national organization look bad. Now, there were some other things on this show that would make the national organization look bad if they were associated with it. But this match wasn't one of them. It was just a mid match. It was mid. You know, it wasn't the worst thing on the show. It wasn't the best thing. It was just kind of like a thing on the show. But I don't know. BGLOs, they get real tight-assed about things that you do in your colors. You can't drink. You can't smoke. You know, if you get caught drinking and smoking in your colors, you'll get fined or some stupid shit. That's why I'm glad I don't do that stuff anymore. You know, having to police other people's behavior is not fun. Let me tell you. Unless you're pledging. Then it's fun. At that point, other than that, I'm about to tell this guy he can't drink in his colors, man. I'm not about to do that. Anyway, they have this match, and it was mid, like I said. The whole thing was built around, oh yes, Taya can finally use her finisher. And then Taya hits the finisher and Jade kicked out of it. So, there you go. There you go. We built it around this match, around that she can finally use her finisher. She does it, and it's not effective. So you're sitting back like, okay, so why did we build this match around the lethality of her finisher, which is the same move that Jade Cargill does anyway. Anyway, Jade Cargill wins. She's 60-0. Everybody's happy. People are clapping. Mark Sterling gets on the microphone, announces that she is 60-0, and that she's ready to defend the title at any time, any place, against anybody. But unfortunately, there are no challengers left. She's cleared out the division. There's nobody left. This leads to match 8 as Chris Statlander comes out to a very mild reaction to challenge Jade Cargill. And I'm thinking, they're not about to do this right now. And you betcha, because AEW is going to overbook everything, and they have no conception of storytelling. They had the match right now. So match 8. 8 matches. Chris Statlander versus Jade Cargill. They do a little bit of fighting. Jade tries to hit her finish. It doesn't work. Chris Statlander tries to hit one of her finishes. It doesn't work. And then she finally gets her, I think, on a tombstone power driver or something like that. And this match was probably about 4 minutes. Chris Statlander wins the TBS championship. Now Jade Cargill is 60-1. Confetti came from the ceiling. The crowd is like, okay. They're clapping. They're not as excited as you would think, you know, because you get this kind of big pop, you know, when you build things up and people actually like that kind of stuff. Chris Statlander comes out, she was already a very, very mid performer on your roster. So to have her come out of nowhere and beat your unbeatable champion in like less than 10 minutes in a surprise match, bruh, you screwed the pooch hard. What the fuck were you thinking? Like, there's so much of that. What the fuck are you thinking? Why would you do it this way? Why? We just had to have this happen on this show. Why not save it for the next pay-per-view where you could tell the story of Chris Statlander making a big return? You can make it feel like it was a big deal. She's the one person Jade Cargill hasn't beaten. You can give her a couple of wins, make her look strong, even do something where, you know, Jade looks a little bit concerned about her. And then you have the match. You give it some time. And then she wins. Then you would have had a huge reaction. People would have cared. But now you're like, we just got to get the belt off Jade. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't just have to get the belt off Jade. All right? The point of a winning streak is for somebody to finally conquer the winning streak. If somebody would have just challenged Goldberg after Goldberg just had a match, right? And won the title that way, people would have looked at it and said that was incredibly cheap. And that's what this is. It was cheap. Yes, it protects Jade because she just had a match and then she lost this one. And she's going to end up blaming it on Mark Sterling, no doubt. But still, this wasn't the way to do it. I have been crowing for weeks that Jade Cargill needs to get that first loss under her belt so that she can grow as a character. But I had no idea that we were going to be so stupid in how we managed to do this thing. It's open challenges. Fucking stupid. All right? Stupid. This was big. You spent 3 years building this girl up just for her to lose in a relative squash match in less than 5 minutes against somebody who's mid, who's not even really over. Why would you do this? Oh my Jesus Christ, what the fuck? This is the equivalent, actually. Because I remember WWE has done some stuff like this before. What they did with Umaga and Santino Marella, right? They had the whole, Umaga can beat anybody. He's the undefeated Samoan, blah, 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 blah. He wasn't undefeated, but he can beat anybody. He can murder anybody. Then they pulled some guy from the crowd. Then they had Lashley spear Umaga, something like that. And then Santino, who just literally jumped out of the crowd, won the Intercontinental Championship over the supposedly unbeatable Samoan destruction machine. And everybody's looking like, what the fuck was the point of you building up Umaga all this time just to have him drop the title in a bullshit way like this? You could have made somebody. And it didn't make Santino. He looked like a fucking goof. And he looked like a goof for like 3 months after that. Now, Chris Statlander is going to get booked significantly better than Santino did because she's going to probably actually win matches. But when you look at the body of work that Jade Cargill has been putting together, there's plenty of things you could have done that makes it more believable. But when you do it this way, it just felt like she was only champion as long as she was because Chris Statlander was out. That's what it feels like to me. It's almost like when you have yourself a transitional champion and you got that transition, you just got to get the belt off of him. Like the Honky Tonk Man, when he was Intercontinental champion all that time, because he refused to drop the title back to Savage. That was a whole story thing that he was supposed to do, and he had refused to do it. So he ended up being Intercontinental champion far longer than he was supposed to be. And then when they finally decided to take the belt off of him, they said, fuck it, we're going to crush him in 10 seconds. And that's what they did. Ended up making Ultimate Warrior look fantastic. But people, guess what? People knew who that guy was. If you watch that thing, the crowd erupts when Ultimate Warrior's music plays. It's a big fucking deal because he had been on TV and people really like this guy. And they're thinking, oh my goodness, how is a Honky Tonk Man going to beat this guy? And you don't even get an answer to that question because Honky Tonk Man doesn't even last a minute against that fucking guy. In this situation, Chris Statlander ain't been on TV in over a year. Everybody's kind of like, okay, she's back. Great. But then you don't even put her over as like some kind of killer by having her win matches on TV and all that kind of stuff. You just immediately smash her over right now. And it's like, it must be right now. This microwave society is ruining everything. Why did you do this to this fucking girl? Jade Cargill put in too much work for you to end her winning streak like this. It does her no favors. It does Chris Statlander no favors. Because now we don't even know if Chris Statlander still got it anymore. You know, there's so much missing here. And it's just a mess. And I'm sorry to tell you, but this sucks. It's like when Alberto Del Rio popped up and beat John Cena for the U.S. title. You probably forgot that happened, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah. Now, the AEW World title match. Darby Allin, Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, and MJF. I hated this match too. The entrances made me laugh because I was flummoxed by the booking of this match as well. So Sammy Guevara comes out. He's wearing all white and tight. And what's his girlfriend's name? His wife. I'm sorry. She's wearing white too. She's wearing a dress. They've got signs, and they announced that they're gonna have a baby right before the match. The crowd cheers. I'm like, oh, that's nice. That was nice. I don't know why we had to do it right now, but that's nice. You know, congratulations. But right before this match, we're going to distract people but the whole pregnancy thing. Okay, whatever. Now, it made sense because they did use that later. But I would have maybe not done that right now. It just doesn't seem like an appropriate time. So immediately after you just announce that this guy's about to have a baby, you have Darby Allin put together a mini movie. And in the mini movie, there's MJF, the guy wearing an MJF face thing. I wouldn't call it a mask, but it was like one of those paper things. And there's an Elvis impersonator. And Darby Allin comes in. He's the bride, apparently, to this MJF guy. He ends up beating this guy, apparently to death. He's got a roll of tape. And he tells the Elvis impersonator, "You're going to help me get rid of this body." He's like, "No problem, man. Wouldn't be the first time." I'm like, what? What? I know these Darby Allin mini movies, you're not supposed to think too much into them. And I didn't. But I was just, when you present things on television, all right, you're opening them up to critique. And I'm looking at that and saying, this match definitely should have just been MJF versus Darby Allin. Would have been infinitely better if it was. But then Darby Allin comes out and he's wearing half an Elvis impersonator suit, half a Jack Skellington suit. And I'm just, again, just floored by how ridiculous all of this is. It's just so ridiculous. And the only person who really had a boring entrance was Jungle Boy, because he's the most boring guy. He just comes to the ring like, oh. He's like, yeah, hey, how you doing? I'm in a pay-per-view. How you doing? MJF, he gets lowered down to the ring while he's in a throne. He's wearing his devil mask. And then he walks through some women. And the women are on their knees. And they've got masks and they've got horns. And I'm just sitting back thinking to myself, everybody who starts talking about the Baphomet Roman Reigns shirt, what do you think about this eyes wide shut shit here? This is a cult, right? This is cult behavior. I didn't mind it though. Look, man, it's just imagery, you know. But it was interesting. I liked MJF's entrance, if we're going to be for real. So I thought it fit the gimmick that he was doing. He's the Jew devil, so they're doing devil worshiping gimmick. Okay, fine. This match though, this match is entirely too long. There's entirely too much in this match. It was just so much. The goofy shit with these guys all putting each other in submission holds. I was like, come on, man. Now compare that to a later part of the match where they're all doing roll-ups on each other. So they're doing various versions of sunset flips and crucifixes. That's fine. I like that. The crowd got into that too. I was like, okay, this is good because they're trying to win. But when you're just doing spectacle, dumb shit, like, I'll put you in a headlock, you put me in the ankle lock, and then you do a head scissor, and then you do this. I'm like, oh, fuck. There's too much going on. I cannot buy into these submission attempts when everybody's in a submission hold. You know, it's just not believable. Because if you can continue doing another move, you're not in any danger, and you're not in any pain. Come on. This basic shit is stupid. Tighten up. All right. Darby Allin and MJF both pulled the headlock takeover thing. They both kept doing that, which is fine. That's why the story should have just been the two of them, because that's their story. That's the thing that they've been wanting to do. Then at one point, everybody did Canadian destroyers on each other. Bruh, I'm burnt out at this point, bro. I'm like, this show is too long. Just a lot is happening. Everybody's jumping on everybody. There's a Spanish fly. I don't even know who's doing what to who anymore. They're all just crashing into each other all the time. You can't follow shit. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. All right. MJF stops the match at one point to cut a promo to tell Sammy Guevara that he knows that Sammy Guevara is about to have a baby. Now he needs more money more than ever. He should just take his deal, lay down. And Sammy Guevara accepts. So he lays down. And then MJF, because he's an idiot, apparently, he walks over to Sammy Guevara, who tries to roll him up. And I'm thinking, like, shouldn't MJF be smarter than that? You know, we've already been like 10 minutes into this match at this point. When he decided to do this whole Sammy Guevara, I just saw that you need money more than ever. Why not do that at the beginning of the match? You know, at the beginning of the match, you could like, buddy, I didn't know we were pregnant. You know, it still wouldn't have made any sense, but at least it would have made more sense at the beginning. Then after you guys have been fighting for a while already, you know, no. Okay. All right. They did a spot where Jungle Boy was, because everybody has to have their own little character arc, which is fine. I support that idea. So Jungle Boy's thing is he's not willing to do what is necessary in order to win. So he gets the title belt in this match. And he's going to hit, I believe, is Darby Allin with the title belt. And he's looking like it. And he pulled the old Roddy Piper with the bell at WrestleMania 8, where he looks at the belt and he looks at Darby and the crowd is standing up like, yeah, go ahead and do it. Which is the wrong response. Anyway. Jungle Boy is thinking about it. He throws the belt down and the crowd boos. That should tell you what kind of audience we have here. The audience have missed the complete concept of the morality tale of pro wrestling. They've missed. It's gone over their heads. You don't want the guys to cheat. Especially hit another baby face with the belt. You guys were just cheering fucking, whether it was Sammy Guevara or Darby Allin. My mind is blanking on which one it was. But you've been cheering both of them. So you don't want Jungle Boy. Now, if it was MJF, I would understand it. It might be. It might have been MJF, and that's why they cheered, you know, when he was about to hit him with the belt. But I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I'm pretty sure either Darby or Sammy Guevara. At any point, the crowd was just cheering that guy, but you also want him to get hit with a belt. That doesn't make sense. That's stupid. So Jungle Boy proves that his character arc is correct, that he's not willing to do what is necessary because he wants to win the title the right way. He puts the belt down, the crowd boos him. I'm like, all right, this sucks. Let's end this, please. You know, at one point, the Darby Allin finally hits the coffin drop, but it was on Jungle Boy, or it was on Sammy. I don't know. And MJF had put the belt on the guy right before the coffin drop hit. So you got Darby Allin essentially dived backwards onto the title belt, cracked his head against the belt. MJF does a headlock takeover and pins Darby Allin again. Okay. This match would have been so much better if it was not a fatal 4-way. If it was just MJF and Darby, this match could have been excellent. Even with that finish, it still would have been great. But having those other two guys in the match, it led to all of the chaos of guys just flipping all over the place, jumping all over the place. There's 100 cutters in this match. Just Sammy Guevara, just 100 cutters. Guys doing flips. It's just so much chaos. It's just so much shit happening. And it's like, I can't, it's too much coming at me at one time. All right. Slow it down. The Jungle Boy story is perfectly fine. Sammy Guevara, I don't know what's going on with him, because we're announcing that he's got a baby. He's just turned babyface. He was talking about working at Walgreens or some other shit. None of this has anything to do with this match, by the way. None of that has anything to do with this match. Except for my dream, my dream. And they did a little spot with him and MJF, but we didn't need that. MJF and Darby have some real unsettled heat, and that was the finish. So that should have been the fucking match. Alright? It should have been the match. That means if Jungle Boy and Sammy Guevara get put in the Battle Royal, like, hell, you put Keith Lee and Jay White in it, you could have put fucking Jungle Boy and Sammy Guevara in there too. I mean, why not? You dumped fucking Swerve in there. Why wouldn't you? I don't know, man. But I didn't like this match either, but it was too long. It was too many guys doing too many flips. It felt like it was going on forever. It was a lot of repetition with all these guys doing the same stuff over and over again. I didn't get it. I don't care. MJF wins. Now what? You know, now what? So I don't know what to tell you. Now Darby can go off and climb Mount Everest or whatever the fuck. Who cares? Match 10. A production nightmare called Anarchy in the Arena. The main event. It was the right match to main event too. You can't follow this because you couldn't follow it if you wanted to, because there's people everywhere. Now, the Blackpool Combat Club, they're played to the ring by the guys who are singing Jon Moxley's theme song, and they sang for like 15 minutes. But, so they basically did the same thing they did last year, where they just played Jon Moxley's theme throughout the match. But that guy, the lead singer, he's wearing black face paint, and I'm thinking it might have been a mask. You know, that's just me trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But he was wearing blackface. And it was like a red stripe on the lips to try to prevent it from being complete blackface. And I wasn't offended. I was just surprised they had the balls to do it on an AEW pay-per-view, knowing this audience, to have somebody wearing almost complete blackface. That's a ballsy move, dog. Now, I haven't seen how people reacted to it because I got to do this thing and get it done. But I wonder if people are complaining about that and how many people actually noticed it. Because it jumped out at me, especially considering the Acclaim mentioned blackface just a few minutes prior, you know, maybe about an hour prior at this point. You know, just an interesting observation. But so the match was what it was. It was folks literally all over. They were all in the crowd. Some dudes ended up outside. I'm like, if you're the producer of this match, and the producer is the guy who has to know when you're going to shoot something, right? You know, be careful because we're about to zoom in on this on camera 3, whatever. How can you, if you're in the building, how can you follow this match? There's people everywhere, right? There's guys over here. There's guys over there. There's some guys in the back. If you're in the building, if you're in the crowd, you can't follow this. There's people everywhere, right? If you're watching on TV, you can't follow this. There's people everywhere. So who is this for? You know, how are you going to satisfy everybody who wants to see this entire match? Because there's people like literally all over the place jumping around. Danielson's being drugged down the rail on his balls. This is all kind of ridiculous shit happening. Guys are getting hit with buckets of popcorn. You know, there's a lot of stuff going. This is while they're still playing the music. You know, like the match didn't even really start. This is like the prologue. You know, the match doesn't really start until the music stops. You know, speaking of the music stopping. So after the Elite get a little bit of an advantage in the ring, the Young Bucks are jumping all over the people. That's what they're doing. He goes to the top of the ramp, and the lead singer, the guy who's in blackface, he takes off his jacket, or he opens his jacket, and he's wearing a Blackpool Combat Club shirt. And then they double super kick him because, and that's why the music stops. So they thought enough of storytelling to say, we got to explain why the music would just suddenly stop. Instead of just saying these guys got bored and went home, we gotta actually go up there and stop it. So if we attack them, then the music will stop. Okay, that makes sense. But I'm glad you thought of that little tidbit and you didn't consider that people couldn't follow your fucking match, because there's guys in the back, there's guys in the crowd, there's guys under the ring, there's guys behind the commentary table, there's guys on top of the roof, there's people everywhere. As a producer, how do you follow this? How do you know what to shoot? Is it random? Shoot this guy, shoot that guy, shoot this. It's Vince Russo style storytelling, where nobody knows what's going on. We're all going to figure it out when we do it. You know, no plan. I guess that's what it means by anarchy. Nobody knows what the fuck is going to happen. There can't be an agent. How can you agent this thing? And because for the first, 10 minutes, it's just people all over the place. Now, once it starts to settle down, you know, it gets a little bit more interesting. But at the opening 10 to 12 minutes, it's just people all over the place with music playing. And there's a referee who gets busted open. So Claudio grabs a referee, and I guess somebody thought enough of the producer to be like, hey, we got a bleeding ref over here. So he got the camera on the bleeding referee. And I'm like, why is the referee bleeding? Why? What's going on? All right. Explain some stuff. So things finally start to settle down. Hangman Page takes off his eye patch to show that he's perfectly fine. Danielson is like, oh, you're okay? Oh my goodness. And they start to fight. Now, once everybody's in the ring, things start to chill out a little bit. We get Road Warrior Moxley, who has, I think, one of the Young Bucks on a submission hold. And then the other one starts kicking him in the head. He's like, fuck you. Fuck you, man. I can't be stopped. I love when he comes across like he's super peeled up. Like there's nothing can stop Moxley at this point. You can run him over with a tractor. He's never going to give up. That's my Road Warrior Moxley is my favorite version of John Moxley. I love it so much. Okay, so at one point in this match, I don't know what's going on. Really, it's just a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. Matt Jackson was backstage, off camera. I don't know. He just shows back up, and there's, I think, a submission hold going on in the ring. And then he super kicks John Moxley, and there's an explosion, like an electrical pop. And me and everybody else is like, whoa, what was that? What was that? And then not only was it not the finish, they kept going. They didn't even stop to see like, whoa. We got explosions now? We got explosives? Nobody registered that this had just occurred, right? It was like Roman candles flew off all over the place. And I was like, wait a minute. Shouldn't we try to get to the bottom of this? Like, why is he all of a sudden like 100% video game when he's knocking sparks out of people? Where did the sparks come from? I didn't see any kind of gadget attached to him that would cause the sparks. So I don't know. Anyway, Claudio took his boot off, took his shoe off, kicked his boot into the crowd, then ripped off his socks. And then they picked him up and stomped him onto some thumbtacks. And I laughed at that. I'm not even going to hold you up. I thought that shit was fucking hilarious. So now he's got one naked foot, standing in thumbtacks, and he's selling the thumbtacks. Later, they put thumbtacks in his mouth. Okay? And then Claudio uppercuts Matt Jackson while he's got a mouth full of thumbtacks. And that is also not the finish. So what is the fucking finish? What needs to happen in order to end this? Does a mountain have to fall on somebody? Is an Acme anvil going to have to fall on somebody? Is somebody going to have to get shot? Are we gonna need like a ring shooter or something like that? What is going to happen to end this fucking match? Don Callis gives Wheeler Yuta a screwdriver. He ends up stabbing somebody with it. But that wasn't enough. Because once the screwdriver got taken away from him, Don Callis comes into the ring. He distracts Kenny Omega. Omega is then attacked by a hooded figure in the ring and got taken out. After this, oh my goodness, Yuta ends up pinning Kenny Omega, and the hooded figure takes his mask off, and it's Konosuke Takeshita. So Takeshita turns heel. We don't know whether, and the commentary team, nobody knows, whether he's joining Don Callis or the Blackpool Combat Club. We don't know. We don't know if Don Callis has joined the Blackpool Combat Club. We don't know. It's all just the anti-Kenny Omega Society, basically. So while we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on with Takeshita, while Don Callis is here, where's everybody else at? Wheeler Yuta does essentially a roll-up pin and wins the match. Brother, there has never been a finish that has meant less in a match than Wheeler Yuta rolling up Kenny Omega and pinning him after we just saw somebody get stabbed with a screwdriver, after Don Callis was just in the ring, after Takeshita just revealed himself. To be quite honest, I'm not even sure what happened first, because it was so much stuff happening that it's hard to decide. I would have to rewatch it in order to understand what was happening first, because everything was happening so fast. And I'm okay if you want to have a hooded figure come in the ring. That part was cool. Maybe Don Callis was in trouble. A hooded figure came in to save him. And then we never found out who the hooded figure is. Don Callis and the hooded figure go off. And then, Blackpool Combat Club leave. And we still have questions about Don Callis, whether he's in the Blackpool Combat Club. Now we got the questions, who is this hooded figure that was hanging around with him? And you could have, come out with that a little bit later. Doing all of that in one match, it's too much. It's too much. All right. Again, it was one of those things where it was like, hey boss, I think we're doing too much. You're not doing enough. Okay. Tony Khan looks like it's not enough. It's not enough chaos. I want more chaos. It has to be physical chaos. Has to be production chaos. It's got to be bleeding referees. It's got to have interferences. It's got to have run-ins. And it's got to have a heel turn with a hooded figure. And the hooded figure has to reveal himself all in one match. Bruh, you think Chinese restaurants give you too much? AEW they got them beat. You ever go to a Chinese restaurant and they fill up the entire container so they can't even close it? And you're like, hell yeah, I like that. Give me my money's worth. Fill it up, When you're watching something on TV, however, you got to be able to process this fucking information. It's information. It's too much. You have to slow it down, bro. You gotta space some stuff out. You might have to cut out some things that you think are important, but they're not really. The bleeding referee, don't need that. All right. Guys going all outside, there's no crowd out there. Don't need that. Guys going to the back, up into the Dippin' Dots or whatever the fuck. Don't need that either. Bring all the things to the ring. Everybody fights outside in the ring. Yes, I can complain about the thumbtacks and the chairs and all that kind of shit, but at least it's all ringside. I don't have to worry or question where everybody else is, where everybody else is going, and all that kind of shit. It's all centrally put right here. So and your producers and agents can follow the fucking action as it's happening. Story elements, you still want to space those out. You want to further the Don Callis Kenny Omega angle in this match. Perfectly fine. It's the right thing to do. You could continue the tease that Don Callis is joining the Blackpool Combat Club just by having him help them. All right. And that's it. You didn't need any more than that. You don't need a hooded figure with the run in. You don't need to reveal the hooded figure. But if you were going to have a hooded figure, there could have been 100 ways for you to introduce the hooded figure. And it still would have been, oh, I wonder who that is. And we could have left with that question in our minds, like, who is this hooded figure? And is Don Callis helping them on purpose? Is he helping them by accident? Is just a coincidence? What's happening? But now I'm just sitting here like, bro, there's just so much going on. It's too much information to process. It's happening too fast. There's too many people doing too much shit. You can't absorb anything. Nothing gets to sit and be with you. And you get to think about it, you know? Like, that's the good thing about television. And if you play like a good video game or a good comic book or a good story in general, something happens and then they give you time to process it. You know, you have to sit with it for a little while, you know, and you're like, damn, I can't believe that happened. Like, that's fucked up. And then we slowly but surely move things along. But you got to be left with something for a little while. Just dumping Takeshita into our lap like this might have been too much. That's just me. Now, maybe you feel differently and you're entitled to be wrong. But I'm looking at it and saying, on top of all of the crazy, ridiculous shit that they're doing, they decided to have a run-in. 2 run-ins, because Don Callis technically was not a part of this match. So it was 2 run-ins, a bleeding referee. Everybody's all over the place. I don't know. I didn't hate the match. It wasn't like the worst match on the show. I'm pretty sure other people may think it was the worst match on the show, but it wasn't. It was just a match that's impossible to follow. And if you're an AEW fan, or if you're like one of those fans of some of the trashier elements of the Attitude Era, you may actually like this. You may say, well, there was that February of 98 match where it was like DX, when Savio Vega took Shawn Michaels' spot, versus, you know, Stone Cold and all those guys. And it was a big brawl, 5-on-5, people everywhere kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, but you don't need to have that match every year, for starters. You don't need to involve the band. You don't need to have a run-in. You don't need to have a guy, you know, turn heel and reveal himself at the same time. You don't need to do everything. I understand that AEW wants to give the fans their money's worth. I 100% appreciate that. Thank you. But by God, bro, learn how to pull back. We didn't need Chris Statlander tonight. You know, you could have saved that. You know, we didn't need for Arn Anderson to bite off Luchasaurus's thumb. You could have saved that. You could have saved the House of Black and the Acclaimed and built that up over time. Sometimes you go with the things that you put time and effort into. And those are the things that you present, and you present them well with good timing and good storylines and good crowd reactions. Not just we're going to pack as much shit as we can into this show. And I get it. It was a $50 show. Heavens to Betsy, if you paid for it, I would hope that you're happy. Because I didn't pay for it, and I still was like, what the fuck is this? Why would you watch this? How could you, I'm having trouble explaining this to people. And I sat down and took notes. And it's hard to explain why all of these matches are so overbooked. There's so many run-ins. There's so much blood. There's so many ref bumps. There's people not saving when they should be. There's people saving when they don't need to. There's extra people in the fucking story that don't need to be there. There's all kinds of shit going on in AEW. It's completely unfocused. They need to streamline this fucking product. Okay? Streamline this product. Let's get out all the things that we don't need. And some of the cooler ideas that you may have, save them for times when you have lulls in your programming. Everything don't need to happen at the same time. Everything don't need to happen at once. This is a continuance of the Tony Khan booking we were talking about a year ago, 2 years ago, where it's all, we're chasing pops, right? I said that before, like, you can't do this forever. You can't continuously chase pops with we're going to bring in a new signing. We're going to have a big return. We're going to have this. We're going to have that. We're going to have title switches. We're going to do this and do this. It's like eventually you burn people out on that stuff. And I think we're at the point now where AEW, where the bloom is off the rose and people are burnt the fuck out on the drama, on the presentation of the product, on the presentation of some of the stars, especially guys like Orange Cassidy. There's too much Chris Jericho, if we're being honest. I love Chris Jericho, but there's too much Chris Jericho. There's too much FTR. There's not enough to go around in terms of people being legitimately interested in this show. And I think that the crowd reactions throughout the night tells you that there's something wrong with your undercard, where Wardlow is a massive dude. He's not that over. That's a shame. He should be. FTR was super over not too long ago. And now people are basically texting throughout their entire match. They're more on Twitter than they are paying attention. Christian was a hot heel. Of course, he ended up getting injured. That was unfortunate. But people are chanting more about his turtleneck. All right. The Acclaimed were super over. You put them in a fucking open challenge where you don't even put any thought into, building them up as a contender first, or having them challenge the House of Black first. The House of Black has just been doing open challenges, so they don't have any storyline going. An open challenge gimmick is not a storyline, by the way. Jade Cargill was just beating random opponents, and then out of nowhere, she loses to somebody who ain't even been there, and you're like, wow, how bad do her other opponents have to be if she can get beat in 4 minutes by somebody who was super fucking mid? I mean, there's just so much happening. I get that you want to have some surprises. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Tony, for considering that I like surprises in my wrestling. And sometimes I do complain that WWE does not do surprises enough. But you need to be strategic in your surprises. Be strategic in your surprises. You don't need to have multiple surprises and multiple title switches and all this kind of stuff on the show. It's not necessary. A title switch or a heel turn does not make a show great. What makes people interested in the show is that the matches answered a question and maybe led to some more questions. Okay? The Anarchy in the Arena actually did that. It was too much. But it did answer some questions, whether Hangman Page is really injured or not. He's not. Okay? But it didn't answer whether Don Callis is really a member of the Blackpool Combat Club, which is a question everybody was asking. It didn't answer that question. It just then added Takeshita to the equation, because is Takeshita with Callis or is he with Danielson and all of them? Is all of those people together? We don't know. And this just becomes an amalgamation of, we solve nothing here. What is the big conspiracy, And I'm cool with it, again, having questions that people might be interested in later on. But again, you have to be strategic. I felt like this was not a strategically put together show, that it was a bunch of shit smashed together, and that by overbooking the show, you were very concerned that your performers couldn't get the matches over. And in some of those matches, it makes sense. And I feel like WWE overbooks especially the Roman Reigns matches, when the ref bump goes down and now it's time to do all the soap opera. But you typically see matches that are overbooked when you don't trust the performers in the match to be able to achieve it on their own. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, okay, overbooked. But Bad Bunny is not a regular wrestler. It makes sense for you to overbook that match. The Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn match, Johnny Knoxville is not a wrestler. It makes sense for you to overbook that match because fucking Sami Zayn has to work by himself. So you need to do something in the match in order to keep people interested. When you have FTR, Jarrett, and Lethal, there are no rookies in that match. We don't need a ref bump. We don't need Karen Jarrett. We don't need you hitting the referee with a guitar. We don't need that. You need to chill, pull back, and realize, let the veterans do their thing. Let Christian lead Wardlow. We don't need Luchasaurus getting his thumb bit off. It's not needed. All right. Cool it with that. It wasn't needed. All right. Not necessary. Just, it's hard to explain, man. But this was the worst Double or Nothing in a long time, dog. This probably might have been the worst ever. It might have been one of the worst AEW pay-per-views I've ever watched. And I've said some of them were not good, but they were much better than this. This was a legitimate shit show. Most of the matches underperformed. The show was overbooked. It was too long. Most of the matches were too fucking long. They tried to kill everybody in every match. It's ridiculous. It's like, bro, this is pro wrestling. This is not human crash test dummies. You got to do better than this. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, daddy.